Hey guys, so sorry about the crappy lighting. I really wanted to wait until daytime to make this. Well, till daytime came back. Okay, anyway, it was words. Apparently I've been away so long that YouTube no longer has a recording device built in, so it looks like we'll be recording this from my cell phone and hoping for the best. Here's what I did. So I realized I've been gone for a long time. I'm sorry. I am working full-time again since my last health update. Still dealing with health issues, but yeah. And so basically, I don't ignore you. I don't ever want you guys to think that I don't even see your messages. I don't ignore them, and it kills me when you write a few in a row and you apologize for being annoying or whatever. I don't think any of you are annoying. I've never ever once received too many messages for someone or whatnot. I know that I have a hard time being able to respond to them individually, especially when they're pretty lengthy and they have a really personal story built in, and that has nothing to do with me being like, oh, I don't have time for this. My biggest flaw right now with that is that I want to give you the time you deserve for that story, and I just don't have it at that moment. I know I shouldn't even bother reading it and not replying. Anyways, sorry, my dogs are insane. I guess, so what I'm doing here is basically I took all of my messages from Tumblr. I went and I wrote down the common denominators, all the questions, especially the repeat ones, and I'm going to answer them. I can't go through my YouTube. I still think it's stupid that I can have 5 years worth of videos, and if you guys leave like 20 comments on one from 5 years ago, 10 comments on one from last month, like I can't just go back to day one and look at every single video and read all the comments and see if there's new ones, you know? So I think I'm going to find out a way to set up so you guys can message me, maybe if you just message me directly on Tumblr or somewhere where all your messages are together. Now my cat's coming, he's going to tip over my phone. Oh. All right, so let's just start. Again, I'll leave a note that the intro is just me babbling. I'm going to start with why do BPDs project, and oh, that's two different questions. So let's start with projection. I believe I have videos touching on this. Why we project so much. So projection is something definitely not strictly related to BPD. It is a thing in itself. It's related to a lot of diagnosis, and if you watch my videos, you know that I don't take BPD as technically a diagnosis. I like to think of it as, I'm not saying it's not a diagnosis. What I'm saying is diagnosis drive me crazy because we're all human beings and we all have flaws to a certain degree, and you can't just slap depression, BPD on it. Like, people can have multiple things to certain degrees. For me, BPD is a degree of depression, anxiety, all those things, because basically the best way I'm ever going to hear it said is how we lack emotional skin. So we lack the skin like third degree burns. We feel everything so intense. That's how I categorize BPD. And so for projecting, though it's not just us, projecting is kind of what people do when they see your shortcomings, or they point out something you're doing wrong constantly, if it's something they also do, or definitely pinning out like weaknesses or picking on you for something, or even it's not just your personality, it's projecting, I think, is right there with gaslighting. That might be a thing. I haven't even been researching anything about humans lately because take a break. No, so with gaslighting, so when someone is projecting to you, it's like a mirror. So someone with BPD especially, people who are projecting, they hate whatever it is that you're doing that they do, but they're pegging you for it. They hate that about them. That's a weakness they foresee themselves having, or something they've tried to fix and it's still there. they always talk about how people are mirrors. That's why it's hence called projecting. Is it wouldn't piss them off so much if it wasn't something that they disliked about themselves. And the thing about that is that I think it's definitely a big thing for borderlines, is why I agreed to answer this, is because, for instance, borderline personality disorder is like PTSD for children. It's something that you aren't necessarily going to go through until like your later teens, early 20s, because it is regressed things or repressed things that you don't necessarily even know are affecting you because you're a child. And it's not until you finally realize it that your life goes all the way upside down, because once you realize you have BPD, that's when the healing starts. And you have to get worse to get better. You have to come face to face with these demons. You have to literally say, this is what I don't like about myself, but that's okay. And that's how you work on things. That's how you get better. That's how you be a better person for yourself first, and then for everyone in your life. So projection is basically, or rather, we're only categorizing this towards BPD right now. So for me, and for a lot of people with BPD, they had a really, really messed up childhood. I keep trying to see the timer. Messed up childhood where there's a lot of abuse or neglect. In my case, I was alone more often than not as a child, in a very crazy, I had, my brother got murdered right at the time where my parents finally divorced each other, which should have been much sooner. There was a lot of hate in the house. They shouldn't have been near each other. They weren't good for each other. And, unfortunately I was the youngest in that situation, and they had already long since hated each other at that point. So, when you're in an angry household and your parents don't mean to do this, like, trust me, well, I can't speak for any situation. I'm sorry. That was shitty. I have dealt with my situation personally a lot. And so projecting has a lot to do for BPD with when you're a child, you feel not worthy. You feel not good enough. You feel annoying. You feel like no one loves you. You are screaming basically for love, for attention, for acknowledgement, for approval, for validation, for things that a child literally needs. And you don't realize that, but the child needs that in order to grow into a healthy young adult. And so when you don't have those things, it happens in children / teenagers where a lot of the times they begin lying. And that was the other question, is why do we lie so much? And honestly, I see it start in children, and it started in me as a child where I would like say things about like things I wish that I was really good at, that I wasn't even really good at. But I'd be like, oh, I've done this for this many years. Like, I'm so good at it. Things that we just really wish were true. And a lot of the problem is because there'll be goals that are attainable, yet we don't attain them because it takes being able to stick to something, and that takes caring about yourself. That takes having confidence in yourself. That takes loving yourself in order to stick to those things and do those things. Healthy individuals can do those things. But I mean, starting from a child, we don't even know that we're emotionally starving. So we lie. And bring back to the projecting, even when we're working on ourselves, like I have a problem with projecting, and I have come leaps and bounds, absolutely, but I'll still catch myself scolding someone sometimes and being like, why am I even saying anything right now? Like, why am I still talking? Why am I making this person feel not well? Be nice to your brother. Thank you. And I have to take a step back and be like, all right, being an asshole. And that's like a lot of people do that. It's not, I get so worried with my videos now that and it shouldn't be this way, but that if we openly acknowledge something, that I always have these people that are like, yeah, you do this, you psycho, leave them alone, blah, blah, blah. Ew, my dog burped and I just ate it. Ugh. Okay. Guys, do you hate when I do this? You guys always are so nice and comment. And you're like, you're not babbling. It was great. All right. So I don't want to, let's leave projecting. I know you asked about it, but it's such a toss up for me because it's not really BPD. Let's say how to know when to give up despite when they act with care and intimacy, but they tell you to leave. So BPD is literally called go away, don't leave me. Borderlines can never get too close. There's like, this is broad because there's a lot of things that a borderline will do that keep you at bay. It will keep them from getting they'll get close, but then they won't get too close. And that has a lot to do with the mind games that are played. It has a lot to do with the lack of communication. So how to know when to give up, but they're still caring about you. They're still having sex with you, but they tell you to leave. So this is something that I would have to honestly say, and you guys are going to hate this, but I've responded and helped a lot of situations where honestly, this is something that has to be on a situational basis, because I get a lot of people where I hear their story and I instantly know that the girl they're dealing with doesn't know what the fuck she wants and is just messing with his head. And I have to be like, sorry, bro, honestly, I think that you should leave. And then if she decides to work on shit, she needs to have the initiative. And I do say that. So for all you haters out there commenting on these videos, thinking I only advocate for being with the BPD, no, I advocate for being with a human being who can acknowledge if they are being toxic to you. I do not want anyone to be with somebody who's being toxic and not doing a goddamn thing about it. So it's going to be a situational basis. How to know when to leave? I can't tell you. I can't just be like, oh, well, when they do this, GTFO. It's very situational. So for those, I will definitely say, and please, I don't mean try and keep it short as in say the details because I don't have time. I mean, keep it short in a way that kind of gets more direct to your question. Like, definitely put the details, say like, this is why I'm confused. She does this, blah. And I don't just mean she's, there's he's in there. But I would definitely say, so let me just think back to when I was like super crazy pants. No, when I was just in my peak, there's nothing wrong. I don't have to work on anything. I would say there was a lot of times where I knew I cared about a person. I didn't know how I cared about them. I didn't know if I did want them in my life as a spouse or if they were actually a really close friend that I didn't want to lose. And honestly, that's a hard thing with borderlines too, because they get so close to someone so easily and so quick. They open up so quickly, and they do keep you at bay with certain things. Don't get me wrong. You think that you're super close to them, and they are keeping you at bay, but I think that's why they do that back and forth too, because we get so close so quick, and then we're like, okay, too close, too close, too close. Like, we have a really bad problem with suffocation and thinking that someone's going to absorb us, and we have to keep our own identity because we don't even really have a sense of self. So, but that's a whole new issue in its own. So as far as giving up, I mean, looking back on my situations, I would, for instance, when I was still in love with my ex, I would still try and be with people who were trying really hard to understand me, and they were very nice to me. However, in certain situations, I knew that we should be friends. However, I liked being with them intimately too, and that's a hard one. I just kind of messed this part up because I didn't think it out. Why don't I ever think things out first? So instances where I would be super nice or still intimate, having sex with someone, but not wanting them near me. So sometimes that can have to do with not wanting you near them because they know internally they're already having this conversation with themselves where they know they don't know what they want from you, so they don't want to screw you over. So they're like, just fucking stay away from me because I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with this. I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with why I am the way I am, why I'm treating you the way that I am. It's too much for them to deal with. And we get overwhelmed really fast because immediately we see like, I'm feeling this right now, and I'm going to have to talk about this right now, and there's so much feeling, and honestly, it's easier to not feel all of the pain that a borderline has at some point, you're going to have to face it. Like, the sooner you talk about it and get that shit out of you and get it away from you, the sooner you can heal. So, to me, a lot of pushing and keeping people at bay has to do with not wanting to communicate, not wanting to face what they're feeling, because that in turn is essentially what they're avoiding all the time, is dealing with the way they feel about something. So when to give up, I guess, is honestly, if they keep doing the same back and forth shit and you're not going, if you're going in circles, you're having an unhealthy toxic relationship, you have to have boundaries. You have to, for yourself and for them, because it's not going to help them either. And I know it can be such a passionate, wonderful relationship, so you don't want to just give up on it. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to give up on it, but you have to take care of you, because they're not going to be able to. Because a borderline, especially that's still in that cycle, can't even take care of them yet, so they can't take care of what's best for anyone else. And that doesn't mean that they have to be alone, but it means you have to draw a boundary. That's my cat's ear. It means you have to draw a boundary on on my cat. It means you have to draw a boundary on, okay, if oh, my phone's gonna fall over. Please don't fall over. Well, don't give ultimatums. Excuse me, sir. Go home. Don't give ultimatums. I don't think that's healthy in general, but I think boundaries where, like, okay, listen, maybe if it's somebody who hasn't been to a group or to therapy or done anything at all to start surfacing the things that they need to surface, then, well, first of all, you don't have to draw any kind of boundary as far as leaving if you have that opportunity to say, hey, do you want me to work through this with you? Do you want me to come to groups with you? Do you want me to come to therapy with you? Do you want me to read these books with you? They are going to need some space to do a lot of it on their own, but they need to be doing it. And honestly, if it's just a back and forth that they're playing, you have to draw a line and say, listen, I love you, like, I care about you, that's great, but I don't care to keep making up and breaking up. Like, either we have to have communication, we have to have boundaries, or the timing's just not right for us, and it is what it is. So let's move on from this question, just because. Also, I think it's really, really important. I know I can kick myself in the ass pretty easy just by reminding myself sometimes when I'm being wicked stubborn that I have to reverse the roles. There's a lot of things that I do sometimes to test things, or like that I do without even thinking about it. And I'm like, oh, if they did this to me, I would be pissed. Like, it is always important to not shove it in their face, because being an asshole is not going to get you far with anyone. However, these videos are to help. So, I think, and maybe do it when you're not fighting. Just be like, hey, I just want to bring up an important thing that I heard on this useless YouTube video. That sometimes it's good to remember when you can't really think about what you're doing. Like, hey, how would you feel if I said this? Or how would you feel if I just did this right now? How would that make you feel? That's a really, really important thing for me, is especially when I am projecting, or so many scenarios, like especially with the narcissistic traits that come along with being a mentally ill person, we can tend to not realize sometimes that something we are doing is not something that we would stand for, and that's not cool. So I think that's a really, really good relationship helper. Let's see, what else do I have? Accidentally on purpose run tests that no one can pass. Okay, this is a really good question, and also leads to being a mind reader. One of my biggest flaws is, and this comes with splitting for me, is splitting is where you see someone really, really good or really, really bad. And so for me, something I've had to conquer is I realize that sometimes, and this also, again, I don't think is necessarily really directly to BPD, but sometimes like that quote, just because somebody doesn't show love the same way you do doesn't mean they don't love you the same amount or whatever. Certain people show things in different ways, or sometimes like, sometimes if I get something in my head, like if I go home and I have a super fucking sore throat and there's no popsicles or ice cream in the house and someone's coming to my house and they know I'm really, really sick and they don't stop to get anything. See, for me, I almost said I love situations like this, which is like super shitty because I don't mean that I like love when anyone's sick, but like I love when I get the opportunity to go out of my way to surprise someone with something. Like I love taking care of something that they wouldn't have necessarily thought of. Or so not even when they're sick, but like just a surprise in general, like whatever. So for me, I would always find myself getting upset by expectations because I would hope that somebody's going to do something for me that, or read my mind is what I'm getting to. Or like if I'd be upset over a situation, like, and this is just a stupid example, like let's say, okay, your girlfriend's going to a bar and their ex-girlfriend like goes there. And they were just stopping by for a drink because their best friend's there. Like, they don't think anything of it. They're going to see their best friend. But for you, you're like, oh, are you hoping you run into them? Like, you have all these thoughts. You're overthinking. Like, and then you're more upset because they don't understand why you're upset. Because they told you that they're just going to stop at the bar. Like, why you're so upset. You can't expect people to read your mind. You can't. And you have to have open communication. And then as far as accidentally on purpose running tests. So I think that's a circumstance. I guess that's why I brought up like the ice cream run, because sometimes it can be situations where you do that and you're like, they better bring home ice cream. But then you don't say shit. And then they don't bring home ice cream and they're in trouble. Like, I think that comes from a huge place of always being scared that somebody's going to let them down. That's why I compared it with splitting, because BBDs are constantly worried about, that's what splitting comes from, is they'll see you as all good until you let them down, and then they see you as all bad. It's genuinely, and I'm not saying it's healthy, I'm just saying you guys wonder where it comes from, and I think it has a lot associated with, for instance, people with neglect in their childhood, they weren't necessarily let down. They were never brought up in the first place. So they were just constantly hoping for things, or just constantly sad. And so, hey, what are you doing? Thank you. So, I lost my train of thought. You're so cute and distracting. Accidentally running tests. Honestly, I feel like, and this, when you're going to be in a relationship with a borderline that lasts really, really long term, you're going to go through things that are like, I feel like they come in peaks. Like a big fight after 3 months happens, and then another one down the road at like 6 months. I feel like that's normal for any relationship. Like I see it with my friends, myself, and I feel like you get over those humps, and that's how you get to a successful relationship. You learn each other. Guys, no, go play over there. Don't bite me. That's not nice. So, hey, don't bite your brother either. That is normal in a relationship. However, the tests The tests, I think, just have a lot to do with being scared of down the road situations. They want to know that they can trust you. They want to know that they can count on you, that you're someone who's going to better their life instead of leave them alone or feeling like shit or whatever. I feel like a lot of it has to do with never wanting to feel how they used to feel ever again. And so, yeah. God, I hate when I do this. I just like, why don't I prepare myself for these videos? What are some things that I or others noticed that made me realize I had BPD? I had never heard of BPD in my life until I got diagnosed with it. For years. So I was automatically put in therapy when I was 10 because my brother got murdered and my parents got divorced. So school like makes you, or at least my school made you go to like a mandatory therapy session once a week with the school counselor. That didn't really do anything for me. Instead, I would just go sit in the library and read books and whatever. Then I was put back in therapy when I was probably 13, 14, because I just wouldn't go to school. I smoked weed, drank all the time, took pills, didn't care about anything. There was no one who could tell me what to do. My dad had left after the divorce. He just stopped coming, and my dad was all I had before the divorce. So to me, A, he was my only authority figure. He's the only person I was worried about. So didn't have any authority after that. And B, I was so sad, and I had no idea that I was sad because it came out as all anger. So I just genuinely thought I was pissed off all the time. I had no idea that that was sadness. That just wasn't discussed. I never said, hey, I really needed you, or hey, this is really shitty. Like, I just thought I was angry. Beaker, you sound angry. I swear they're just playing. So that was that. And then I was in therapy again for half a second for ADHD. I ended up being diagnosed over the years with ADHD, bipolar, and then when I was 20, I finally took myself to therapy because I just knew, you're a child. He's my puppy, so he really is a child. So I knew that there was something wrong. I knew that I felt a lot of things and I did a lot of things. Like, I grew up looking at my parents and picking out what I didn't want from them and what I didn't want to be when I grew up. And certain things were happening anyways. And I knew that some of my thought processes just weren't right. And I didn't understand why I couldn't let anyone near me and just so much. So I took myself to therapy at 20. And my first session, she said, you have borderline personality disorder. And I was like, what the shit is that? And I went home and I want to say I bought a book because I'm a nerd. The internet wasn't huge then. So I bought a book and I felt like I was reading my autobiography. I don't remember what book it was, so please don't ask me. But it just talked about all the traits and it, of course, decodes you verbatim. Finding out about borderline personality disorder is the hardest part about having it. Because it's not until then that you start saying, holy shit, first of all, am I even a person? Because this textbook is who I am, so I don't even think I exist. But then, and I didn't realize then, like, I started working on myself, or rather reading about myself and learning. However, I did not realize that at one point, to get better, I was going to have to say, my brother was killed, and this is how I feel about it. My dad left, and this is how I feel about it. My mom did this, and this is how I feel. Like, I didn't know that when you spend so many years sweeping shit under a rug because you're just a fucking child and are by yourself with no one to talk to, you're not talking about it. You're just eating it. And you think that if you don't deal with it, it's just not, it's like, all right, well, eventually it'll quit and, like, I'll be a grown-up and life will be better. No, my friend. That's not how it works. Sorry. So I spent my whole life with people knowing something was wrong with me because I was evil. Everyone in my family just thought I was evil. I hated everything. I ran away literally every other week. I was trying to find my dad for years and ran away, skipped school, just there was something wrong, but no one knew what. They thought I was just an asshole pretty much, and I did too. So once I got into therapy, and it was really funny because I went through a drastic change where like people see me now and they're like, you would fight with people? Like, nah. I went through a drastic change of being so angry to all of a sudden being so fucking depressed that I didn't understand why the fuck I kept waking up. Like, it was bad because when you're depressed but don't know why, like, well, I mean, that's depression in general, but I mean, like, when you're diagnosed with BPD and you don't even know what you're supposed to be facing yet. That... I forgot what I just said because I watched my dog chase his tail. I'm sorry. So basically, we always knew there was something wrong with me. I didn't know it was BPD. I'm not upset that I got diagnosed with BPD. It has brought me leaps and bounds from where I was. And honestly, I mean, I still deal with bettering myself as a person every day. Absolutely. Would I say I have BPD? No. Because, like I said, I think of it as like a degree of mental illness. And to me, I've grown a lot where I don't have necessarily third-degree burdens anymore. Things do not hit me, and I automatically shut down because I feel so much I don't know how to deal with it at all. I luckily am not at that stage in my life. That wasn't supposed to sound like really. I was just trying not to sound like... All right, anyways. My dogs are psycho. So, in conclusion, this was just to answer you guys' question, like a couple questions. I know normally I'll do this and then I will look for a topic on BPD and talk about it so you can talk about both. I like to talk both to the person with borderline personality disorder on like, hey, I get it, this is what you're feeling, let me help you understand why you're feeling it. And then I like to talk to the either family member or spouse of the person with BPD and be like, hey, here's a great way to be there for them. So if in the meantime, I probably won't post that until tomorrow. So if by some chance you guys somehow watch this video by then and you would like to leave a suggestion in the comments for a textbook trait or something like that, I will make a video on that trait and focus on that one. If not, I'll pick one and I'll make a video. I can never really apologize enough for how much these videos probably end up wasting your time because